Okay, everybody. Welcome to the Tech Communications Workshop. Happy that you're all here. Again, there are some storms and things, at least going through like the Louisville and central Kentucky area. So if you have to drop off, just hop back on as soon as you can. We get it, no worries. But tonight we're going to be covering some stuff on projects, GitHub, interviews, and some more. Here's kind of a loose agenda for tonight's workshop. So as sort of some housekeeping things, if you don't mind, please raise your hand if you have a question to ask, and sort of wait until we get to Q&A sessions. We sort of have some breaks in the middle of the talk to give you some chances to ask. If you want to write down your question, you can always put it in the chat or use the handy Q&A function. That way we don't lose track of your questions. The Q&A function is really excellent. But beyond that, yeah, please just keep yourself muted unless you're asking a question and raising your hand. That'd be really, really appreciated. This is being recorded, as you can see, so you will get a recording of this down the line. And all the links and things that I post, we'll also send all of those out next week once we send you the recording. Here's kind of the careers team. This is kind of the people that make this side of things happen. So Shannon Sheehy is kind of the manager of the careers team. She is sort of responsible for making sure a lot of the events and things that we have happen and that they go smoothly. She's also a really great person to reach out to if you're just not sure who to ask. She can direct you to the right person, no worries. I am David York. I'm one of the technical project managers, so I help people continue to build technical projects after they have graduated the courses here. But we'll get more into that in a minute. My co-host is Danny Morton. If you want to say hey, Danny.
Hey, everybody. You'll be hearing from me in a little bit.
Our technical career coach is Jenny Terry, so we'll get more into what technical career coaches do, but the next person on our list is Allie Rippey, sort of the employer relationship manager. She makes sure to keep up with businesses, make sure that they have sort of give us opportunities for you all to apply to once you have graduated the program here. So she's responsible for a lot of the really great jobs that we have in Slack. So definitely keep in touch with her if you ever have questions about a job. Tracy Spencer is much the same, but more in the Eastern Kentucky part of our program. So anything focused on sort of tech support stuff, a lot of remote stuff, that's sort of what she focuses on. But yeah, that's kind of the careers team. So what do we do? What can we do for you? So we do resume reviews and mock interviews. Those are really important. If you want one of those done, if you like your resume looked at, if you like some practice on interviewing, you can always reach out to Jenny Terry. You can also reach out to any of the rest of us, and we will be able to either direct you in the right place, help you get a mock interview, or do a mock interview ourselves. We do a whole lot of hiring events and just employer events in general. Those you will see not only on Slack, but on a lot of the newsletters that we put out. So stay tuned for those. Sort of the most general thing we do is just to give general advice on how to conduct a successful job search, make your life a little bit easier there. We also connect you to hot job leads, mainly through the jobs channel in Slack, which is actually quite important. We'll get more into that in a minute too. And the Tech Careers newsletter. If that doesn't sound super familiar to you, that's totally okay. You probably haven't gotten it yet. Once you graduate the program, that's when you get the Tech Careers newsletter. So no worries if you don't see it yet. Me and Danny are really focused on helping you continue to build technical projects, help you continue to learn things in the technical space, be able to talk about your projects really well, be able to basically just talk tech in a way that makes you attractive to employers on the flip side of that. So that's what we're here for. On the Slack channels, here's kind of how you join them. So in the left side of Slack, whether you're on the desktop app or whether you are on just your computer on the browser, you will go to channels. You will click the drop down arrow, go to manage. Once you click manage, you will click browse channels. Once you browse channels, it will take you to a card on the right here that's screenshot. All channels. You can just type in the search bar hashtag or pound jobs. It will display all of the jobs channels that we have. You can join as many of those as you want. I would highly recommend that you keep up with those channels. Checking in like once a month is not enough, honestly. You will miss a lot of really important things there if you're really job searching. I would say at the minimum once a week. Check more often though, if you can. There's a lot of really good stuff. A lot of jobs that we can give you a direct referral to a hiring manager and actually get you talking to them directly without going through a sort of a typical application process. It's super valuable. It really, really is. So with that all out of the way, let's talk a little about web presence and personal branding. So GitHub and LinkedIn are definitely professional tools, but it's really encouraged that you show off some of your personality, right? You want to show that you're a real person online. Really quick on social media, employers will absolutely Google you. So whatever social media comes up. It's probably best case scenario that your LinkedIn comes up first. That's great. If you're a little concerned or you're not sure what would come up, if you are Google yourself, see what comes up. If the first things that come up are a bunch of like your sketchy, weird posts on like X, formerly known as Twitter, you should probably private those or do a little soul searching and maybe get rid of some of these old accounts that are causing you some troubles. Biggest thing is if you were a hiring manager, would you hire the person reflected by that search? And ask yourself some hard questions there. With LinkedIn, it really is important that you have a fully built out profile. It's important that you engage with people on LinkedIn. So you can make posts if you really want to go above and beyond, but at least comment, at least react to stuff. That stuff does matter. Connect with people that you meet in your classes, connect with people that you run into at networking events and things. Connections show that you're really actively invested in the tech scene. And honestly, having a complete profile shows that you care about your work, you care about your self-image. That really does matter to a lot of companies. Incomplete profiles don't like kick you out of the running or anything, but it definitely doesn't do you any favors. If you're going to make one, you may as well make a good one, right? So a good example of a good LinkedIn would be Christina's here. So a few things to note. She has a profile photo that is of herself. It's a very clear profile image. It's professional without being too stuffy or stiff. It shows who she is. At a networking event, I could probably pick her out from a crowd based on that profile photo. Her background banner is actually custom and sort of shows a little bit of her personality too. I'm sure she just picked it up off the web somewhere, so no worries on making your own or anything. It links back to her GitHub, which is very important. It has a recent activity description where she's made some posts, made some comments with people, and sort of engaged with the platform, engaged with other people on the platform. Employers, recruiters, they do notice stuff like that, so that matters. Her about section is well built out. It's not super long, but it sort of goes into why she's here, what she's doing, what her interests are. Talk about how you're looking to transition into tech, steps you're sort of taking to get there, like completing the Code U course, working on projects, going to networking events. If you're doing any kind of public speaking, talk about stuff like that. Make sure to focus on transferable skills in your sort of skills section of your profile, sort of on the right-hand side of the screen. All of those are really important and can honestly lead to you getting a job more than technical skills sometimes. But frame your skills in terms of how they will help you with future jobs, not necessarily in just how they helped you with a previous job, if that makes sense. Another real quick hot tip on LinkedIn is make sure to, if you apply to a company through LinkedIn, make sure to follow that company on LinkedIn. And the reason is whenever the recruiter looks up your name comes up first in the list of applicants, which is pretty neat. I didn't know that. A recruiter actually told me and Danny that during another talk, and we were like, oh, that's awesome. And it really does work. So absolutely do that. It's a little cheat. But yeah, we'll sort of bridge into GitHub.
All right, so getting started with GitHub here. Very similar to LinkedIn in that aspect. You want to definitely use a photo of yourself, get away from the little Space Invader type image that they give you by default. Great if those photos match for sure, because if they find you via LinkedIn or GitHub and they go to your LinkedIn, they know that it's actually the same person. So that's always a good, helpful thing going on there. So definitely get that profile photo changed so it's you. Put a nice little description about yourself. Again, show a little personality. Tell folks what you're working on. If you've got any projects that you're currently working on and you might want people to contribute, that's always a good place to put them. Drop in your pinned projects. So that's like the projects that you've completed. So your capstone is a great example there. That'll probably be a pinned project for you. And then any other projects that you really want an employer to see, go ahead and drop them there because that's your portfolio essentially that you're showing off. Right under that, you've got your contribution bar. So if we look at that, we can take a good guess as to when Christina joined CodeU. We can see the work that she did and that she stayed pretty active throughout. Had a little space there where there's a couple weeks off, but we see that nonetheless active and posting and things like that. If you look over to the left, you got your little achievements. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's where you get things for like doing pull requests, opening issues, committing to code bases. If you commit to big ones, they've got custom badges and stuff you get. So employers love seeing stuff like that. And if you look right above that, there's her LinkedIn link. So you can get back and forth to and from the profiles. And then we'll dive into the repositories a little bit there. So we look at that up at the top, we see that she has 15 GitHub repositories. So we know that she's worked on quite a few projects there. We see a couple things. That first one, that's an update of her README, or it's a README file that updates her GitHub profile. If you don't know how to do that, you can reach out to us or Google it, and we'll show you how to do that. The next one is a Vue project. So fun fact about Christina there is her capstone project is the Parklopedia, and then she knew a company she wanted to work for. She did her research. She looked them up on LinkedIn, met some people, talked to them, learned that they use the Vue framework. So she went ahead and built a project on that. She got an internship that helped out a lot, that she had a project in the framework that they operate in. So little hack there to get yourself recognized by employers pretty quickly. And then below that, we've got the capstone and some GitHub actions there. So she's learning all the tools that we use in the workplace. Definitely makes you more marketable. Then we're going to talk a little bit about our READMEs. This is just as important as our LinkedIn profiles and our GitHub homepage. This is the first introduction somebody has to your project, your coding, how you go about things. So definitely make this nice and professional. You start out with a nice little overview of your project. It's a couple sentences of what the project does, what problems you were looking to solve. If you're doing a crazy complex project, it might be a couple paragraphs long or whatever, but this should really tell the layman what you're doing, how you're doing it, things like that. Doesn't need to be like a whole thesis, but gives them an idea what they're about to look into. And then next, you're going down with how to run that project. So you're going to tell them if they need to sign up for some APIs, give them links to the site so they don't have to go out and try and Google them. You want to make this as easy as possible. And then I can't stress enough, having clear written instructions on how to actually run your project. You'll thank yourself later. Once you haven't touched this project for 6 months and you go back to it and you've wrote some custom shell scripts or something that do things and you forgot about them, you're really going to thank yourself. So you'll put that in there, have that nice list. You'll want to point out like main features in the project and your README as well. And then always you can have like what to do if there needs to be contributions and things like that. You can put in steps like that. At the top there, she's got a cool little thing where there's GitHub Actions and it's saying the standing of the project. So lots of cool stuff you can do with README. And let's talk about talking about projects. So in the tech space, it is super important that you're able to have these technical conversations. A lot of us are new to coding and we've been growing these skills. I'm sure a lot of us, when we were in intro, learning all this new terminology, directories, terminals, bash, all these words, they were like, oh my goodness, what is that? It's only going to continue. We're going to learn new stuff every day and keep using new technologies as we progress. So definitely start incorporating that into your talk when you're talking to other folks about tech. Definitely, talk to your classmates, get a better understanding of what they're working on. There is so much to learn, so they're going to be using other tools and packages and things that you haven't used. This is all great ways to get exposure to things and learn and see where you need to take your coding career. All that being said, there's a huge difference between being an introvert or being nervous and somebody that doesn't know their stuff. So even, the biggest introvert that's super excited about programming, like you're going to be able to talk to them. It might take you a little bit to get out of your shell. I always use an example. There's a student that I had who would almost have panic attacks if you tried to talk to him. Would get super nervous. I learned that he liked Pokemon, and that's how it would open up the conversations. We would get going about Pokemon. You couldn't get him to stop talking, and then we would dive right into like talking about our projects. He was always doing projects based on Pokemon, so we could just get the ball rolling there. And I have conversations with him all the time. We're having a great time. But normally he'd be like having a panic attack trying to talk to somebody. So if you're in the same boat, just try and find those things that you relate to with others and talk about those, get the ball rolling, and it'll get you out of your shell. But that's one of the biggest things is getting out of the shell so you can network with these folks and talk about the projects, make these connections. That's going to be a big key to getting jobs and growing your career and making transitions from job to job. It's always better if you know where you're going and you know people there versus going to a new company with no connections. So that's definitely super helpful. And all this to say, we're going to give a presentation of our projects, a nice little interview with one of the CodeU staff when we're done. This isn't like a gotcha moment or anything. It's just we want to hear you talking about your projects, have you walk us through where you have met all the requirements, just to get you used to talking about these for the interviews. Because when you interview with folks, they're going to ask you to talk a little bit about your project. They're going to pick something out about it. It always happens, especially if you've solved a problem that they regularly have to solve in the workspace there. So maybe you iterated through a data frame in a really cool way that was super smart, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. Like, we approached that problem very similarly. And, that's how we typically solve that. So if you don't know about your coding and you just all AI'd it, you're going to be like, yeah, sure, I did that. Absolutely. And they're going to be able to pick up that you have no idea what's happening. So with that, what are employers looking for? The big thing is that problem-solving mindset, because at the end of the day, all we are doing is encoding is A, working with data, B, solving problems. So they want to know that you can work with data and solve problems and be able to talk about it and show those things off. And David, do you have anything to add with that?
Yeah, I was gonna say biggest thing beyond like problem solving mindset is like communication, right? Being able to talk to others, not only about tech, but about problems that you're facing, be able to work through problems kind of as a team player. Really, really important. Because if you can't convey information clearly, it's going to be a lot harder for a team to work with you. And so it's really about fit in a lot of ways, So those are extremely important. Communication and problem solving. So with that, talking a bit about improving your portfolio and good strategies to do that. So sort of once you've turned in your project, your work really doesn't end there on that project, or at least it shouldn't. You should make updates to it, ask your mentors and classmates for feedback, features they want to see, stuff that they would like implemented, whatever. things where they think you could have done something more efficiently, whatever you want, but definitely keep iterating on your project once you complete it. Your project and projects should really be things that you feel proud of, especially something like your capstone project. You should really feel some serious pride in that, and then you'd be happy to show it off during an interview and talk about it sort of a professional setting, and be able to talk about it in a pretty deep way that shows that you're passionate about it and that you know a lot about that project. Something a lot of people don't do, but I highly recommend that you do it, would be, once your project's in a really good spot, record a video of you describing it and talking through it and talking about your choices and sort of why you did what you did, just in case you aren't there necessarily whenever that project is being looked at, because sometimes you won't be. Good place to put that. You can put it on YouTube, obviously, is a good place to upload stuff like that and keep it there. But post it on your LinkedIn, link it on your resume. You can link it on GitHub, actually in a README if you really want. But totally do stuff like that. That really helps employers, and it also really helps people looking at your project who may not be very technical, right? Like somebody like a recruiter. Keep making other projects after you're finished with your capstone. If you keep seeing like a particular language or a tool mentioned, and it kind of interests you, or you're really interested in that job, but it seems like you need that tool or that language to succeed in that job, build a project around it. It can be a micro project, doesn't have to be something super big and complex. It can be really quick and short. Daniel will talk a little about micro projects later, but that's a really good way to pick up those skills. Social challenges are also a really good way to continue learning programming skills. So LeetCode has a lot of problems that are actually used in interviews. So highly recommend solving problems on LeetCode. First timers only is good if you are wanting to get into open source but really don't know how. They have a lot of really friendly ways for you to do that. So yeah, Danny, you want to talk about open source a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned earlier, on your GitHub, you get those badges for contributing to things like that. And if you make contributions to open source projects, if they're big enough to, that shows up in that little contribution list, which is really cool. So there's a bunch of different places you can look online. You can do some Googling, but First Timers Only is a good example, but there's a bunch of other places, and they have projects. Some of them are simple as create a pull request, they'll add it in, you'll get a little badge for going ahead and making that contribution, just so you learn that process. To more advanced things, sometimes there's actually like broken features in projects that are like live, and it's just open for anybody to solve those problems. With that being said, it can be intimidating, but don't let that hold you back. Get in there and give it a shot. It's only going to help you, and it'll definitely help you learn a whole lot really quickly when you start looking at professional code bases like that, because that code is written by senior level programmers most typically. It's usually written in ways that, going through the code you program, we're doing everything the first time. We're not coding to that level. So there's going to be different structures of code. Things are going to be broken up quite differently. So it'll be really cool to see that and then start implementing those things into your own code. With that, like the first time that I made a big contribution, I made a contribution to the Pandas package, which is a large package used in the data analytics. I was looking through how to do it, didn't understand all the different tests they have, because there's like a whole set of GitHub actions, and then you have to supply use cases and this and that. And I was like, well, I wrote this additional package to it that works really well, and I'm just going to go ahead and push it up. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. It failed all the tests. The people that maintained the package got back with me, was like, hey, this is fantastic. We love it. It would be great to implement. But your use case doesn't solve the other 200 other cases. So if you want to write 200 more of those to solve all those, absolutely do it. We'll put it in. If not, somebody else might pick it up later. So that's kind of where that lives. But it was a cool experience. I learned a lot through it. Got to see how the GitHub actions work in place and how it works in a giant project like that. Got a better understanding of how that happened. I messaged a guy that reviewed it. He sent me some documentation. They were super friendly. It was super awesome, and that was like a super intimidating thing to even try to make a push to. You're like, oh boy, that's something that professionals use every day. But a neat experience. So all that to be said, don't be afraid to give it a shot. If you make something and it works, the worst you're going to do is say no. They're not going to be mad at you. They're going to be like, awesome, you gave it a shot. And if you're doing cool creative stuff like that, they might bring you onto their job. Like, oh, I really like the way that they tried to solve that problem and that they took the initiative, and we've got an open space that they might be a good fit for. But all this definitely helps, and it shows the employers that you have that constant learning mindset, that you're continually trying to solve problems and working on big things like that. Definitely helps. That puts you on the radar for a lot of folks. So I'd say definitely give that a shot at some point. And we'll transition over to our next slide. So a big question that we get asked is, how many projects should you have? And much to what the slide says, that limit does not exist. So we will say there's no magic number, except you got to have more than one project. One project's not going to get you hired. I've used the example all week. I do know only of one student that made a single project to get a job, and that was because she has a PhD in aerospace engineering. They grabbed her for her math skills. She does machine learning things. They didn't care about her coding. Was like, cool, a little bit of Python. That PhD in math is what we're after. So unless you have some phenomenal skills like that, you're going to need these additional projects to really showcase your skills and show them that you are here to do the things. So with that, let's talk about some of the projects that we could do. As David mentioned earlier, those micro projects are super fantastic. I can't highly recommend those enough. So when you're applying for jobs and you're laying out your career path, you're like, all right, I want to be a junior data analyst or a junior web developer. They're going to have different things on there, like frameworks that you haven't used. Maybe they mentioned Postgres, which is a type of database. If you haven't ever used it, that's a great time to be like, all right, let me do a simple project with a Postgres database. So it doesn't have to be this huge, crazy database. You could have one table in there with a couple columns and a couple rows. Just go ahead and make that, do a couple queries to it, maybe write an API to sync that to your website or pull information into your data project. That's going to show that you have the ability to learn that and to work with that skill. Once you learn a couple of those skills doing those micro projects, incorporate 2 or 3 of those into a little bit of a bigger project. It doesn't have to be a huge capstone project, but you're just showing that you can take and learn these little mini skills and chain them together to accomplish a bigger job. So all those projects don't need to be shiny, super fancy. They just need to get the job done and show that you're constantly learning these skills and new technologies to implement. And it's just helping you be more desirable for all those folks that are looking for, new programmers. So with that, we definitely want to see progress over perfection on the project. So I'd rather see you make steady progress learning skills than have 2 really polished projects. It just is more desirable to see that you're learning these skills that all chain together to do a job, versus like maybe 1 example or 2 examples of projects that you've done. It lets me see how you think, how you're trying to solve new problems, and that constant learning and problem solving is only going to make you sharper as you go. And with that, just keep in mind, the code, it might not be perfect. Your design might not be perfect. That's not the final representation of yourself. So if you're not a good designer, don't stress it if you really love the back end. Like, you've got to do the cool back end stuff, and then you got to put that information somewhere. So displaying it on a website that doesn't look the best is better than not displaying it anywhere. Or if you're a great designer, design a great front end, but you need to pull some data from the back end. So your back end might not be wonderful, but your front end's going to look great. You're applying for a job that showcases that skill anyways, and it's great to show that you can at least connect those pieces together if you need to.
So with that, do we have any questions or anything so far? We pretty good? Cool. If we're pretty good, then we're going to go into technical interviewing. So in the career readiness workshops, Jenny talked a little bit about interviewing and sort of how to succeed in like a cultural interview, like using things like the STAR method, stuff like that. Technical interviews are different, and we'll get more into sort of what those look like here in a minute. But in general, sort of a typical interview funnel in most jobs is going to be like, you're going to have a phone screen, you're going to have like a meeting with HR, and then a call with the hiring manager. Or sorry, a meeting with a hiring manager. I say call because it'll probably be a video call. That's usually how it goes these days. But with that being said, sometimes you'll get an added step of a technical interview. Sometimes that hiring manager meeting or call is going to be a technical interview. It just depends sort of how long interview funnels last. It really just depends on the company you're applying for. Some of them are really long, some of them are quite short. It just depends. But in general, the interview itself is way scarier than the actual job itself. So don't sweat them too much. Preparation really helps with stuff like that. So maybe answering questions that people already know, but what is a technical interview? A technical interview is where you are being asked to produce a piece of code that does a thing, that accomplishes a task. Varies on styles, which we'll get into in the next slide. But employers in general are looking for how you perform under pressure, and they're looking for how well you do under pressure and how well you're able to talk through your process and things. They're not really looking to like get you or anything like that. If you don't know something, that is totally okay. That being said, it is still an intimidating process, really. The interviewer knows that too. They know that's an intimidating process for developers, and so they are going to be nice almost undoubtedly. If they are not nice, that is probably not a place that you want to be working anyway. But with that being said, we are going to sort of bridge into the styles of technical interview.
All right, we'll go over the different styles. I'll start out first by saying with these interviews, sometimes they're going to give you much more difficult questions or an easy question and work you up through some harder questions. Again, these aren't gotcha moments. They're just trying to gauge your knowledge base and see kind of where you are and assess kind of like where your skills fall. And that gives them a better understanding of where you can fit in the company. Sometimes you might even get kind of moved into a higher position role that way because you have more skills than you thought you had. So that being said, the first type of technical interview is the timed assessment. So much of what that sounds like is they'll give you a problem, or they might give you a series of problems. That's going to be typically done nowadays. We'll have like a portal that we log into, so it'll be just like a standalone site. Typically, they're kind of like school ones that you all might have encountered where you can't have separate windows open or different browsers. So the purpose of that is to just see how you're thinking. You'll code those out. Once you finish, it'll submit your code to them. After that, you'll definitely meet back with them, and typically you'll go over the code with them, kind of walk them through your thought process. If it's not evident of what you've done, they might ask you some more questions. But again, that's just to kind of see how you go about solving that problem, kind of put on the spot. And then there's the observed coding. So pretty similar to the timed assessment, but with this one, there's going to be somebody there watching you. So you might be on a Zoom call like this. They might have a portal that you log into again. There might be like a FaceTime type situation where they're talking to you and seeing what you're doing. But with that, they're going to see how you're actually coding, going about solving those problems. In these interview formats too, it's typical that you can use like pseudocode as well. They're just wanting to know really how you think about solving these problems. The only caveat to that is if you're working for like one of the FANG companies, so like Facebook, Apple, Amazon, giant companies like that, you are going to actually have to solve that problem. They're typically wanting the best of the best, so that's just like the caveat there. If you're wanting to work at Google or something, definitely get on LeetCode, start solving those problems and get it down because that's what they want. But otherwise, you know, you're just trying to work your way through the solution. Then we'll move on down to the take-home assessment. These are typically a little bit different, so they'll give you kind of a related activity to what you would do at work. So it typically won't be like proprietary company information, but somewhere adjacent to that. They'll give you like a set of requirements that you have to meet, and then they'll give you a time frame. It might be a week, it might be 2 weeks, and then they expect you to go ahead and code that on your free time, satisfy those requirements. You'll push those changes up to GitHub or send them a link to your profile, whatever, however they suggest you do that. And then you'll meet with them, go over the things, show them how you met all the requirements. They'll talk you through that. And then we'll talk about the whiteboard exercise. So with this, it's very much what it sounds like. This is like an in-person interview tactic. So you won't see it too much anymore, but you'd go up to a whiteboard or a chalkboard. They'd ask you the question. You're going to start writing out how you would solve it. Again, you could do the pseudocode, things like that. They're just, again, wanting to see that process of how you're thinking about it, how you'd go about solving it, and they get to see it in real time. So
yeah, sort of the weird wrap up to this section is like the Q&A, because it's not sort of a typical technical interview. You don't have to necessarily produce any code or anything, but it is basically where you're going to sit with an engineer or a group of engineers and talk to them about stuff that's on your resume, talk to them about stuff they ask you on LinkedIn, from your GitHub, community contributions that you've done, anything like that. In general, it's really conversational, and it's usually as part of maybe another step in an interview process. So you may get like a take-home assignment, finish that up, and then do a Q&A, or vice versa. It's honestly a time for you to sort of just talk to the people who are going to be doing the job with you. Potentially, it's a really good time to talk to them and get to know them. It's also a good opportunity after you're out of that interview. If you feel like it went decently well, even if you don't get the job, connect with those folks on LinkedIn, keep up with them, can't hurt. I did actually just drop a link in Slack. That's Mark Hamner from Papa John's guest speaker talk on interview prep. He's done a absolute ton of interviews over his career. So used to work at Waystar, now he's at Papa John's, but he's interviewed people all the way from like apprentices all the way to like senior level devs. Interviewed a lot of CodeU students too, but he has some really excellent pointers on how to do well during technical interviews. So absolutely check that out. But after the first answer on a technical interview, you might run into a situation where the interviewer wants you to change your answer, right? They either give you a new set of parameters, they change sort of the original question. They say, hey, well, what happens if this thing comes up? They sort of want to see how you're going to think on your feet, and what you're going to do to resolve that new issue. The other thing too, sometimes in like a take-home assessment or observed coding, you may get something wrong, something may not work, and they'll sort of address that and talk to you about it. In general, if you run out of time on something, if you miss a certain question or anything like that, that is okay. You can always talk about sort of your process in how you came to that conclusion, how you would have figured it out if you had more time, things like that. In general, it isn't anything like they're trying to catch you on a wrong answer or anything. They're just trying to see sort of how you think, what your thought process is, and how you deal with new requirements and things. If you don't know, saying that is totally fine. That is a totally acceptable answer, as long as you try to figure out the answer. Don't leave it just at I don't know. Talk sort of about, if you do know something about that, talk a little about, hey, this is what I think that thing is. This is sort of based off my other knowledge, or I really don't know what that is. Tell me a bit about it, and then launch into sort of a conversation there. Never really just stop it at I'm not sure or I don't know. Again, lying is a really good way to get booted from the running. They will be able to tell that really quickly. So do not do that. But definitely admit it if you don't know something. That is totally acceptable. and actually really relevant to the real world. You're going to have to ask questions on the job. So.
All right. So with all that, we're going to tie in kind of what we met with the logical thinking on those technical interviews. So this is an example. A lot of you probably seen it in the pathway, but if you haven't, we'll go over it. This is the classic FizzBuzz. So this used to be a really popular interview question. So you might see it come up, but since it's been used a lot, it's kind of fallen out of favor. But the problem essentially that you would have to solve real time would be you've got a loop or a number up to whatever, kind of how FizzBuzz works. So this way it's going from 1 to 100. And then they're asking you if the number is evenly divisible by 3, that it would display Fizz. If it's evenly divisible by 5, it would display Buzz. And if you can divide by both 3 and 5, it would do FizzBuzz. So that's a very typical thing. You're just working with your programming language on its core tenets. So you're using the variable assignments, loops, you're doing a little bit of math, the comparison operators, modulus operator, and things like that. So they're just looking that you know how to use the core tenets of that program and to solve a problem in a logical manner. A big thing that I do suggest is to do little activities like this because that's how they do the technical interviews. So you definitely want to get used to it. And then also, as you're learning new things, so if you're learning SQL, this is a much funner thing to do. You can program this in SQL and then insert this into a table and do things like that. Or if you're learning JavaScript from the data analytics, you decide to do JavaScript. It's a funner way to learn the language than the basic hello world. You can learn those little core tenets and you understand them because you already understand programming a little bit, and then you get to see how they're doing variable assignments, loops, math, different things like that. So definitely give those things a try.
Yeah, so with that, some more tips on doing okay, like doing well at technical interviews, not doing just okay, really knocking them out of the park. But here's some more tips in the chat as well, some more resources that we have. But in general, know your coding language pretty well, know data structures, differences between arrays, lists, stuff like that. Get good about thinking about edge cases, and if you can't anticipate some of those, you can't anticipate everything. At least be able to work through things kind of on the fly. Do a lot of leak code problems, solve a lot of issues, talk to other devs in the space, and sort of see what they may bring up as an edge case. It's really helpful. If you don't know what type of interview to expect, ask your recruiter. It is absolutely important that you know what to expect going in, that way you're not thrown off. Again, use things like LeetCode, Code Wars, HackerRank. They're all free. I mean, of course, they have paid tiers, but they have very good free tiers. Code real world adjacent applications. Pick sort of a problem or something that you want to solve and just go for that. That's highly recommended. If you want to learn quite a lot, build something at least kind of robust. It doesn't have to be super crazy. It can be something like a really basic inventory tracker or something, but those are really, really helpful. If you don't understand something, ask for clarification. Never be afraid to do that. That is something that they're going to be looking for a little bit. So they're going to want to see if you're willing and able to ask for clarification on something, because you're going to have to do that during your day job. With that too, on the job, business team might give you some kind of requirement that is kind of vague and doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to you. You have to go back to them and talk to them about what exactly they meant by that. That is totally a normal part of the job. It is really important at the end. A lot of people gloss over this, but ask questions at the end. It shows that you are thinking about the job and you're genuinely interested. If you don't, that can sort of reflect badly. So there's a ton of questions you can ask, but some that I really like are what tech stack do they use and sort of the rest of the company, and sort of how does what you would be doing on this team fit in to that, if it's not already clear. How do they mentor and train junior employees? see if you have the right support that you need to succeed. How do they define success in the first 6 months? Most good companies are going to have a good answer for that because they have an exact understanding of what they want you to be doing and how, and not necessarily how they want you to be doing it, but they know where they want you to be. And then sort of the last one that I really like is what opportunities do they have for continued learning, right? So do they have things like education stipends? Are they going to send you to conferences? They're going to give you certifications, things like that. At the end of the day, remember, code something. Definitely do something in the technical interview. It can be easy to just sort of get freaked out and not complete it or let nerves take over. Really practice to make sure that that sort of thing doesn't happen. But yeah.
All right. So answering questions when you have no idea what the correct answer is. So in these interviews, that is part of the process. They're going to ask you questions that they expect you not to know the answer to. If you do find yourself knowing the answers to all of the questions that they're asking, you might be selling yourself short in that role. So you might want to start trying to apply for higher up roles. But in that being said, so you do get those questions where you don't know the answer to it. Don't just say, I don't know. That's not a good look, or I'll get back with you. Let's ask some questions more about it. So maybe they ask you a real particular question about React. You might be like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about what React is and why you're using it to solve a problem over a different framework? So that's going to show your interest in it. It's going to get you some more information. You might be able to then relate back to it in some way and be like, oh, okay, I understand. You're using it to simplify ABC, and that seems like it's going to streamline the process and it even loads faster and makes the application run better. That's awesome. Like, I definitely see why you use it. So that shows that like you're excited, you're applying the concepts that you know to it, and you're actually having a bit better of a discussion about it. And then you're wanting to find out things like why they're using it. You know, maybe it's like, oh, why are you using Vue over React? That seems a little odd. Most people use React. And they'll be like, oh, there's this edge case that we have to solve for all the time that just does it much better with. So that's what we're doing. You're like, oh, that's awesome. So you get to find out those cool little things there. It's showing that you have an interest in that. And then, like I said, a big hack and things like that. So if you're in the interview, you hit one of those hard points and you're like, oh man, like I have no idea what that was. I've got a little bit better understanding because I asked them the questions. Do you feel like that interview went well? Use that, that night, the next day, build you a little micro project around that, and then definitely send that to them. Be like, hey, I didn't know about that, but look what I did. I built a little project around it so I'd have a better understanding. That's, definitely going to make you stand out over the candidate that just was in the same boat and didn't do anything, never got back with them. And like, oh, well, David actually put some effort in and learned how to use it a little bit. I want to grab David.
Yeah, absolutely. Showing the initiative is super valuable in an interview process. But with that, landing your first job is key. Obviously, it is to a lot of industries, but especially in tech. First job is probably going to be the hardest to land. That's just how it is. Depending on your current situation, sort of where you are in your career, that could entail you working at a lower managerial level than you're used to, or even taking a very slight pay cut. With that being said, people always raise back to their original level of pay, and much higher typically, and end up going to higher levels of I guess, management, if you're into that, if you're interested in management. In general, what sort of propels them to do that? They have a lot of soft skills, a lot of really great hard technical skills that help push them forward. But getting your foot in the door is huge. Once you're kind of in, you're in. If you don't have a whole lot of work history, you might want to look at tech support or other tech adjacent roles like project management stuff to sort of get a little bit of experience under your belt. If you're already really established in your career, have some years had some years in the workforce. Use your network, really leverage your network, and use transferable skills to stand out above the crowd. If you're in a company that's kind of, I would say, mid-size or bigger, all companies have tech in one way or another, or if they don't, they should. You can probably cycle into a more technical role in your current organization. That's actually what I did. So I used to be in the school system. I cycled more into IT and did some C# work for them, which was able to move me more toward where I wanted to go. Now, that being said, with that job, it was not my dream job. That job was extremely stressful and hard. That's how it goes. Sometimes that first job ain't going to be your favorite job. Hopefully, you're going to sort of want to grow and improve and move on from that. So talking about jobs, sort of what roles to look for and how do you know what roles to look for? Hopefully you picked a pathway that really interests you, and that you already have some ideas in mind as to where you may want to land. If you are in a situation where you don't really want to pursue what pathway you went with here, that is totally fine. Main advice is just to research job postings that sound interesting to you, and make sure that your resume reflects the skills listed. You might have to do more self-learning, so you can pick up some additional projects and skills related to that position. But it's really important that you find roles that are interesting to you. Just because a certain position or job title or company even is really popular at the moment doesn't mean that they are the right fit for you. You're going to be much better off if you're happy where you work, and much better off if you're interested in the work you're doing. Those are very important. In general, job titles are super inconsistent across the industry, and vary wildly from company to company. So that requires a little bit of research. Actually read job descriptions. Just because you see a job title that says a certain thing does not mean that that's what you think it means. A good example is Coastal. They are a Salesforce consultancy, great company, really great people that work there, but they call their junior level positions senior consultants. I don't know about you, but if I saw senior consultant on a job listing, I would be like, I don't qualify for that at all. And I would just move on, right? But if you actually read the description, I'd be like, oh, wow, I'm actually way overqualified for that job. So it's really worth actually combing through and reading that stuff. Once you've done that with a few companies, you kind of get an idea of their naming system. And so you don't have to vet them quite as hard each time. With that though, actual job websites, so like a company's career site, make sure to bookmark those, check back with them regularly. It's one of those, with the way hiring goes, they will suddenly hire tons and tons of people for a role after having kind of a dry spell for a little bit. That's just how it goes sometimes. Best way to keep up with that is to check back in regularly. The nice thing about job boards, they will send you alerts if you sign up for emails. So they'll just send you stuff. Same deal with recruiters. If you work with a recruiter, they will send you job listings, and we'll get into recruiters here in a minute. But other good places to look are Slack, Slack channels just in general. So regional Slacks or technology specific Slacks. Our Slack is a really good place to look for stuff like that. In all of those, we have a well, not all of them. Many of them, we have a direct relationship with the employer. And so please let us know if you are curious that we have like a connection there and can vouch for you, because we might be able to do that. Other professional associations, Discords, LinkedIn is a really good place to find companies that you might want to apply to, but always apply on the actual company website. Main reason I say that is sometimes those job listings are outdated. You don't want to put together a resume for something, spend time on it, go to apply to it, and that job just be expired. That's really annoying. So make sure to actually go to the company's website and verify that that's the real deal. Some tips on working with recruiters. So recruiters, internal recruiters are really pretty straightforward. They're just recruiters that work for the company you're applying for. So if you're applying for Microsoft, a internal recruiter would be just a Microsoft recruiter, right? Straightforward. Things get a little weirder whenever you start working with external recruiters, but tech has tons of them. So you're going to run into them at one point or another. Those are companies like Tech Systems. Brooksource is an external recruiter. Harvey Nash, basically companies that have been contracted to fill roles, right? When you're working with external recruiters, make sure you let them know up front what you're interested in, right? Like the pay range that you're interested in, skills that you're looking for, kind of the job duties that you're interested in doing. If you're not super sure on some of that, do a little research before you talk to the recruiter. But they will send you stuff that sort of fits in those brackets. Typically, they have a lot of jobs. If you are, say, really sold on like, I want only a remote job, and you're really not getting that many of them, you can always come back to them and say, I'll take hybrid if that's what's going to get me a gig. And they will definitely have something in that vein. So definitely compromise when you can. At the end of the day, it's up to you to figure out if that job's a good fit for you. They have a lot of positions, and they don't know you as well as you know you. So they may send you stuff that isn't the best fit of all time. So definitely check out that stuff. Same with employers. If you get a recommendation from a recruiter for a certain employer, that may not be a great fit for you, and they may not necessarily be somewhere you want to work. Make sure to do your own research. Recruiters always have a ton of other positions open, so make sure you tell them about as many of the skill sets as you have, and as many skill sets as you're interested in working in. That really does help you get things from recruiters. Don't be afraid to reach out regularly to see if they have new stuff. They are really inundated with a lot of emails, a lot of meetings. So the more you sort of stay in touch with them, the more they'll be able to keep you at top of mind, right? Last real thing there is be aware of hiring scams. They're definitely out there. In general, they're pretty obvious if you use some critical thinking skills and do a little research on these companies. In general, if it's too good to be true, it is. Another hot tip that I use, because we vet a lot of companies here that are like sketchy or at least shady, and give students recommendations on whether to apply to them or not. Just type in the name of the company, legit, and then Reddit. And you will see so many things on Reddit talking about like, hey, yeah, this company, they took my lunch money and they're horrible. Don't ever apply to them ever. Or others that they're like, yeah, they're totally legitimate and they're fine. That is really helpful. If you ever have questions about those, reach out to one of us, and we will be able to help you figure out if that company is the real deal or not. But really quick, some advice for career changers. I know a lot of folks here are career changers that don't necessarily have prior professional tech experience. Being a career changer is really an asset, actually. You have a lot of soft skills that a lot of technical people don't necessarily have. You have great communication skills, typically great teamwork skills. Those are really valuable and sort of set you apart from the rest of the job market in tech. It does take time and effort to get in from the outside, but you will get in if you are persistent. Keep applying. If you network, leverage your already existing network, whatever, but you will get in. With that, market is a little weird because of bigger companies having large amounts of tech layoffs. Makes it a little tough sometimes because you're competing with mid-level folks willing to take entry-level roles. That just means that the job search might take a little bit longer, and that you have to rely harder on networking, talking to people, technical projects, and things that we've already been talking about. But those are the really important focuses there. Something to note: in-person and hybrid roles they always have less competition just because you're dealing with a local pool of applicants rather than the entire nation, say for an all remote job. A lot of companies, if they're bigger, have the ability to go full remote later. So that is definitely something to consider. You do definitely have to have some kind of technical project on your resume, whether it's your own project, whether it's something you've done for a nonprofit, some kind of open source contribution, anything. But you need to have projects on your resume. It's very important. And again, I've said this a bunch, but networking with other devs really does help you stand a head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd, both digitally and in person.
All right. So a big question we get, do I need a degree to get a job in the field? The answer is no. So you will see that some folks do have like degree requirements, but that's not always hard set. That's just kind of a wish list, as much of the skills and technologies they want you to know on the job or the 7 years of experience. They just want you ideally coming in checking some of those boxes. So with that being said, some roles do require that degree. It's typically the upper level roles, like the C-suite folks, or maybe like heads of teams, like not the project manager, but his boss. They might require degrees for something like that. If that's where you want to go, then it's important when you're looking for these jobs, look for the folks that do like the tuition reimbursement and stuff like that, and work on your degree as you're working on your career. So start taking those steps in that regard. But a big thing here is all those skills that we listed, those continuous learnings and things like that, they want a degree because that shows that the person at least put in 4 years of work, was able to finish something, and now they have that piece of paper to show that off. So when you don't have a degree, that's what you're competing against, is that. So you got to show that you are able to learn, you're able to do it on your own, you're able to grow those skills and do all the things that they want. So absolutely don't let that set you back from applying for those jobs. All right. The big elephant in the room, is AI taking over? So the answer to that is no. We do see some companies, like the big ones, like Facebook and stuff, have let go of folks and said that AI is going to take over and perform a lot of their duties, yada, yada, yada. We've been seeing a lot of those folks hire teams back, sometimes even more so because the amount of work that did not get done. I've seen some studies come out recently that it takes a senior dev 19% longer time to code using AI, and that's usually because they're having to do so much prompting, so much correcting of the code or reprompting, trying to make it do additional features and cover all the things that they would have went ahead and wrote themselves. So like anything, it's a tool. Calculators didn't replace accountants. It just made them more efficient and better. So it's a lot of the same in that regard. Now, it is affecting some spaces a little bit more so, but we still need those folks there because, security concerns, you can't just willy-nilly be like, yep, the AI is going to handle it. And no human oversight is fine, especially like it helps out a ton in QA. So that's quality assurance. So it's going to go in and test different things on like your website and your app. That's fantastic. It does a great job on a lot of that. Humans also do a lot of silly things. So we're really good at going in there and finding those little odd edge cases that the software won't cover. So it'll speed up a lot of those manual tests that you used to have to write in QA. And it'll go ahead and write those, and you'll still get to play with it. It's not taking over their jobs. It's helping a lot in the cybersecurity space. It's finding a lot of vulnerabilities and stuff really fast. But again, if you're relying on the security of your application for a multi-million-dollar company, you're not letting Skynet just handle that on its own. You're going to want to be in there checking it out as well. It's also affecting DevOps folks. It's helping automate a lot of the deployment and the pipelines, but also folks are still out there having to, rein it in, fix some things, and do some efficiencies that it might not do. A lot of times it's just going to try to satisfy you and find a solution. That does not mean it's going to find the best solution. And in spaces like that, those pipelines can cost millions of dollars a year to run. So, David's going to be really mad if I just let it do a sloppy implementation and it's costing us, 50 grand extra a year. That's an employee's salary. So let's not do that. Let's have Danny in there actually checking, making sure it's optimized and coding it correctly and putting in those pieces how they should. Ways that we should utilize the AI, though, in our advantage. We're going to have to know how to do the prompt engineering correctly. And with that, it's super important that you know all your basics of programming, like we've been learning. A lot of times when you're using AI to do things, it's not always writing the best code, and you have to be really explicit about it and tell it what to do. So, if I'm programming something in Python, I'm like, hey, write me some code to iterate through this data frame to do X, Y, Z. It'll probably do it. It'll spit out something that works, most likely. It's probably not going to put it in a function. And if it does, it's probably not going to have type hinting and doc strings and be properly fitted and take arguments that I might want it to do. So I'm going to have to, from the jump, be like, hey, I need you to write a function that takes these variables, has type hinting, provides doc strings, does X, Y, Z, and then returns this. So a lot of times that takes me longer to write all that out than it does to go ahead and write that function myself. So it's kind of hit and miss. One where you'd use it in that regard, but also it's great for problem solving, explaining chunks of code that you don't understand. So you'll use it a lot in the job in that regard. So you might have a chunk of code that you just don't understand, and you have the AI go through it, kind of break it down for you. That's great. Turns out David has a lot of custom functions in that code, didn't document it. The AI doesn't know. I don't know. Then I got to hit David up, like, David, help me. Which isn't always a bad thing. You get to work with your coworkers.
Yeah, I was going to say AI is definitely still fairly limited and always kind of will be in a lot of ways. You still need a human in the loop. Speaking of humans in the loop, finding more tech connections, right? So actually where to network and how to find people that are actually doing the work. Regional Slack channels or interest groups are really great. So Cincy Tech Slack is good. Bluegrass Developers Guild, that's sort of Lexington area. But it's really quite excellent. Louisville Tech Slack is active, full of nice people. But a really good place to search for other groups are things like Meetup, Eventbrite. A lot of those also have things that fit your interests that aren't just in-person events. A lot of them are virtual events that you can just hop onto. Discord groups are other really good places to talk to folks. Reach out to folks on LinkedIn if you see someone posting a lot of things that resonates with you and you think is interesting. With that too, place that a lot of people don't tap for contacts are people from your hobbies. Like I'm a big outdoors person, and a lot of outdoor people are huge tech nerds. So absolutely talk to people in your hobby groups. Same with like if you have like video game D&D groups, anything like that, you'd be surprised where those folks work and who they're connected with. You really, really would be. Another sort of slept on thing are conferences. A lot of people are like, well, I don't really want to pay for a conference. We don't have to. You can volunteer at conferences and you get in for free. Not only can you network with the other people volunteering, but it also can give you kind of a backstage pass to talk to some of the speakers that you think are really interesting and well informed. So that is definitely worth doing. Then once you're done with sort of your work, you just get to hang out and enjoy the conference. I'm going to drop in the chat some other Slack and Discord communities, but this is by no means a comprehensive list. There's tons of them out there. But with that, selling yourself at hiring events. So hiring events can be really awkward if you don't know how to sell yourself or don't know really what to say. Best way is to have something a little preloaded to say. So sort of an elevator pitch. A lot of people say that. But a good example would be, so this is my elevator pitch, right? Like, hi, my name's David. I'm a technical project manager, and I work with people interested in learning technology and wanting to leverage their skills. I have a passion for education, human-centered design, and helping people gain insights in data. I'm interested in emerging technologies, but I really love proven scalable solutions that help make people's jobs easier. Outside of work, I ride a lot of bikes and I travel as much as I possibly can. So it can be that simple. It's not very complex, not very long. The idea is that if you only have a few moments with somebody, just say that, and that kind of gets all the really important information out first. If you have more time to talk about it after, that's totally fine. Definitely do that. But at least they remember some of the high points about me, my personality, and my professional interests. At the end of the day, if an employer is at a hiring event, they want to talk to you. So don't be afraid that you're bugging them or anything like that. The other thing too with hiring events, make sure to have your LinkedIn ready, and be willing to share that with employers. But yeah, with that, we'll go to imposter syndrome a little bit.
Yeah. So definitely, I'm sure everybody in the room has felt imposter syndrome or feels it now, or you're definitely going to feel it at some point in the future. Everybody goes through it, even if you're super qualified. It's something that's going to happen. Just know there's a ton of resources online. Look those up. Definitely don't let that just overwhelm you. Get out there, apply for those jobs, start doing that networking. You're definitely qualified. You're ready. You got the skills. Yeah, it's just something that, it's going to be there. It's going to be present. All throughout this process and the career, you're going to start feeling good and be like, yeah, I'm awesome. I got this. Things are great. I understand Python finally. And then you got the job and they're going to send you your first ticket. You're going to open up the repo and be like, oh boy, I'm terrible. I don't know anything. And then it starts all over. And then, a few months later, you're going to be like, I got all this down. I understand the repo. And then like, new issue. You're like, oh boy. So just learn how to ride that roller coaster and keep working on your skills. Just doing what you're doing, and never count yourself out. Especially when applying for those jobs, let the employers tell you that you're not qualified for it. Don't make that assumption yourself. I found myself in a lot of fantastic roles that way. Just one of my mentors gave me that advice, and just landed jobs that I never thought I could have by just simply applying. And they're like, oh, Danny, you do have those skills. Come on in. I'm like, oh boy, this is an odd place that we're in. So with that, on the job, you've probably seen it if you've asked vague questions in Slack. I'll usually respond and be like, hey, can you provide me a code snippet or tell me what you tried, or trying to have you elaborate more on your question. So asking questions, we've talked about that a lot. It's definitely something great to do. In that you definitely want to give some context to it. Don't simply be like, hey, my code's not working, help. Nobody likes that. But if you're like, hey, I'm trying to do this, and then you give an example of it, and then you're, so that I can do this, and I'm running into this, and I've tried this and this. That shows that you went ahead and tried to solve the problem and gives me a better idea. Maybe the first two things that you tried are exactly what I would have tried, and that lets me go ahead and kind of eliminate those and help you out more efficiently. So definitely on the job, do things like that, and that will help you succeed so much more.
Yeah, and sort of we've been talking a lot about upskilling and continuing to build your skills and things. Please do that. It has a tangible effect on your income, according to this stat that we got not too long ago. So please keep building skills, keep upskilling, things like that. With that, we've had about 1,300 plus placements so far. So that means people who have either gotten a tech job, gotten a promotion in their current company, or moved up in their current company. There are doubtless a lot of other people who have gotten positions over the 1,300 that have just not told us. Please let us know when you get hired at a It doesn't have to necessarily be a tech company. It also doesn't necessarily have to be a fully technical role. As long as your position has some technical aspects to it, let us know. We would absolutely love to talk to you more about that, and sort of share in that success there. We do this program because we care about your success, and we want you to succeed. With that, it also directly helps us in the sense that we continue to get funding by getting these reports. So please let us know. There's a lot of times we've looked and combed through LinkedIn, see kind of what people are up to after they graduate, and they got, like, say Danny got this super great, awesome job, like, I don't know, 2 months after getting out of the program. He never told us, and it's like, that's unfortunate. And so we have to go chase Danny down and talk to him about what all cool things he's doing, and we would just like to hear that from the horse's mouth, right?
We
So
celebrate the wins with you too. That's
yeah, absolutely.
all the
Yeah,
staff
no,
get super excited when we hear about cool jobs. Like, oh my god, did you hear that so and so got hired wherever? And like, we're all like, that's awesome,
right.
because
Yeah, we really
we're super
do.
invested.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. We really do care that you get hired and things. We really want to see your success. And so talking kind of about success, talking about next steps and priorities. So make sure your resume is complete with your capstone project and all the skills that you picked up along the way. Make sure to practice presenting your project in prep for your capstone interview. That is kind of going to be a few things, but it's going to be an overview of your project, functionality and use case for that project, and then your future plans and what you plan to do down the line with that project. With that, meet with the career coach, meet with employer relationship manager, meet with one of us, the technical project managers, to develop a career plan. Apply to at least one job, but definitely apply to more, right? The more you apply to, the more successful you're going to be. Make sure to do one thing each day to kind of keep your learning momentum going and show some activity on GitHub. People do care about activity on GitHub, believe it or not. Make sure to add yourself to the jobs channels. That is a great way to see all of our really great jobs first. Keep an eye out for the Tech Careers newsletter once you graduate if you don't already get it. Demo day is going to be September 10th at 3 p.m. Lasts till 4:30 p.m. It is all virtual. We'll let selected participants know once their projects are graded. So selected people will be able to present. Everybody else can just come and sort of support and show up. It's always appreciated. We will drop some other links later, but eventually, after that's kind of a lot of work, right? You've been doing a lot of work up to this point. Keep in mind, you will eventually get hired. That will happen. You just have to be persistent. We will help you as best as we possibly can. Please keep us updated on your job search, and please let us know when you get hired. That is very important to us. So please let us know that. Here's kind of the end card. So this is just a reminder of all the people on the careers team, along with our emails. Best way to get a hold of us is probably going to be Slack. That's where we're on the most. You can email us too, though. That's totally fine. But on that, are there any questions?
I gotta say, I'm impressed Shade's been working out for all of us, so nobody else has to work out.
Yeah, I'm impressed too. Yeah, I've been picking up energy off of it. It's great. Yeah, I'm impressed.
Hey, Peggy.
Hi, my question is August Map my career coach?
At the moment, I am actually not sure. We've sort of had some rearranging in the careers team. So you can actually reach out to Ginny Terry, and she'll be able to help you with whatever you need.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All pretty good. Sweet. If that's the case, then we can end early. Excellent. If you have any questions that you think of later, because that's usually what I do, I think of great questions like 10 minutes after something like this ends. You can always message one of us. That is totally fine. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Really appreciate y'all. We'll share a recording and a bunch of links next week. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, have a good Friday and have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you, everybody.